Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. At AM 630.
It is 8:06. You're listening to WMAL. I'm Brian Wilson. He's Brian Neiman. This is the place where Washington comes to talk, and we are very pleased to have on the phone line right now the senior political analyst from your Fox News channel and a good friend of mine, BRIT Hume. BRIT, good to have you.
Good to talk to you, Brian.
All right, listen.
Or Brian's.
Yeah, the Brian.
Right.
You go say Brian, you can't go wrong on this program. That's right. I want to start out by talking about the president's comments the other day about the Supreme Court. Some say he was lobbying. Some say he was lecturing the court while it's in the midst of its deliberations. Then you got this judge down in Fifth Circuit Court of Appeal in New Orleans who's ordered the Justice Department to write a 3-page essay on exactly what the president meant. What do you think about all that, Britt?
Well, I think the president made a mistake. He made some factual mistakes in his assertions on Monday about the role of the Supreme Court and judicial review and so forth, which is kind of an embarrassment for a president with a grounding in constitutional law who, was supposed to be, an expert. I don't think what that judge did in the Fifth Circuit was help matters. It was kind of a stunt, ordering the Justice Department to produce a document no less than 3 pages, single space to describe it. I mean, and then his order further required that it be specific. Well, if you're going to write 3 pages, single spaced about, Marbury versus Madison, you're going to have to get pretty specific to fill those pages. So, my sense about it is the president tried to walk it back the next day and refine his comments. I don't think presidents of whom a certain dignity and decorum is expected do themselves any good when they, raise questions about the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. I think it's beneath a president to do that, and it's a particular problem for this president, Brian, because this is a man who didn't seem like an ordinary politician. He was really elected as someone new and special and a kind of above partisanship and so forth. And, you get him out there kind of firing warning shots across the bow of the Supreme Court. He just looks like an ordinary politician.
Is there any political upside to him doing that?
Well, I don't think we'll ever know because he misstated the facts about how the court works and had to correct himself the next day. And when you do that, there's not much upside.
Right.
What was the purpose of it, though? Do you have any feeling of why? Was he just answering a question and just kind of went too long with his answer, didn't think about his answer, or was there an actual purpose behind his comments?
I think there's some apprehension at the White House that the Obamacare mandate may be struck down, and if that guts the law, and he may have been trying out some talking points as to how the administration and his campaign will respond to having, the cornerstone of his signature achievement ruled constitutionally illegitimate. That may have been part of it. He may have been trying to work the refs, but I don't think working the refs with the Supreme Court is very effective. He called out the members of the Supreme Court in his 2010 State of the Union address, right, and in so doing, in 2 ways misstated the facts about the Citizens United case. I don't think that did him any good. I just think that this, no matter how clever you think you're being, or whether you think you can successfully work the refs, the Supreme Court is in lower esteem than it used to be, but it is still has more prestige than any of the 3 branches of the government right now, and I don't think attacking him will work.
What is the political fallout if it is declared unconstitutional? I know James Carville has said that as a professional Democrat, he thinks it's the best thing that could actually happen to the party. How does this play out for this year and down the road if it is deemed unconstitutional?
Well, it means that the president goes into the final stages of his re-election campaign having had the Supreme Court of the United States say that the funding mechanism, the cornerstone of his most important achievement legislatively, is illegal. Now, you can argue that gets the issue off the table and takes it away from the Republicans if you want to, but I think that's a black mark, and I don't see how it helps.
All right, I want to turn to state of play in the race right now. I mean, Mitt Romney's doing pretty well. There are some polls out there that suggest that Rick Santorum may not even win his home state, although there's another one that says it's pretty close. If he loses Pennsylvania, is there any way that Rick Santorum can stay in the race?
I don't think so, and I think he's almost effectively out of the race now. I mean, if you there's a lot of focus on Pennsylvania, but 4 other states, including New York, vote that day.
Right.
And the total delegate haul from the other 4 is 150 delegates or so. There are only 59 available in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure that Santorum's even going to campaign in any of those other states. So even on a night when he might win his home state, which everyone is expected to do in these races, I mean, Gingrich did, Romney did Romney by a huge margin. He's still going to lose ground in the delegate hunt. So I think look, I understand in a sense where he is in his own mind, Santorum, and there's no taking away from him the extraordinary achievement. I mean, this guy was the last guy in line, it seemed,
right,
in this whole campaign season, and he saw all of these other characters sort of sprint past him and take the lead, Kaine and Trump and Bachmann and Perry and Gingrich and all of these other players, and all of them, meanwhile, he was still an asterisk, basically, and now they're all gone, and he's still standing. That is no small thing, and it revives his career in the Republican Party. The danger for him is if he stays on through Pennsylvania and possibly loses Pennsylvania, then he's undone a lot of what he's accomplished.
Yeah, so he's taken 4 days off. Now, obviously, it's the Easter weekend, no doubt, and that's very important to him, as it is to many Americans. But do you think he's taking stock of things?
I would certainly imagine so. I saw him in Fox the other day.
Yeah, he comes by all the time, right?
Well, he comes in from time to time. He's often doing it from the road, but he was in there the other day, and I had a chance to talk with him. And he could, I've covered a lot of these presidential candidates. He's done something that very few politicians ever accomplish, and he was just on fire with it. I mean, you could see it in his face. He may be exhausted. Candidates usually are by this stage, but he was also plainly exhilarated, and I've never seen him more full of life. He's vibrant with this.
Yeah, I ran into him on the campaign trail. The same thing I noticed. He's really excited.
You go to tell a politician who's done what he's done, hey, buddy, time to quit. You're talking to you're talking to an unreceptive audience.
Right.
Now, when he sits down with his family over this long weekend and looks ahead and contemplates the reality of it and contemplates what he's gained and what he might yet lose, I think he may come to a different judgment.
All right, before we let you go, I think you put this out via Twitter, although I'm not exactly sure, but you made the point that the president has gone after Paul Ryan for his budget and saying that it's basically Darwinism, I think is the term that the president social Darwinism, but that the president or the Democrats could get a budget out of the Senate, and they don't actually have to have the 60 votes that sometimes everybody thinks you have to have to get something through the Senate. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, under Senate rules, under the Budget Act, there's a streamlined procedure for enacting a budget. And understand that when the House and Senate pass budgets, they then have to go to conference and come up with an agreed upon compromise budget, which pass both House and Senate and do not require the president to act. And it's 51 votes in the Senate. It's a simple majority, as always, in the House. So there's no doubt that the votes should be there if Senator Reid wanted to enact a budget. But it's clear to me that he thinks it's politically a loser for him to force the 23 or so Democratic members who are up for re-election this year to cast the votes that would be necessary to enact a budget, because the choices, I'm oversimplifying this a little bit, the choices are basically 3. You either vote to cut spending, which is politically risky for a Democrat, or you vote to raise taxes massively if the budget's going to look like it's going to do anything, or you end up passing a budget a little bit like the president's, which really doesn't do much of anything about the debt crisis. Those are 3 politically unpalatable options, and I think Senator Reid thinks it's better not to force those members to cast such votes that would leave them vulnerable in the fall.
All right, BRIT Hume, really appreciate you coming on this morning.
Okay,
Thanks
Brian.
a lot, buddy.
Thanks for having me.